Hello and welcome to a very special Betting People indeed. For today's guest is well known both in the circles of flat racing and also, of course, the circles of international sports. I have the honour and privilege of speaking to none other than Michael Holding, who has taken time out of his schedule to join us today. Michael, thank you so much for coming on. How are you?
I am pretty good, thanks. And thanks for inviting me. Everything has been good my end so far.
Lovely. Let's hope that continues. So, first things first, want to get into the thick of how you got into racing because those eager watchers of everything that you do will know that you're very much into your horse racing and that you started out at Caymanas Park. Now, tell us a bit more about that place and how it all started.
Well, my interest in horses started when I was very, very young. My older brother, 6 years older than I am, he had a godmother that owned the horses, and she lived next door to us on Dunrabbing Avenue in Kingston, Jamaica. And whenever she went down to the racetrack in the morning, not on a race day, on racetrack in the mornings to see our horses, my brother would go with her. And because he is my older brother, I wanted to tag along. So that's where the interest started. I would go with him initially before I even got to double figures. And it just grew and grew from that. When I went to high school, KC in Jamaica, I had friends who loved horse racing. They then dragged me into it further. And as I said, it just kept on growing. It got to the point where I owned horses in Jamaica, went down to Caymanas Park on a regular basis, went down to the stables. On the odd occasion, very, very odd occasion, I might go down in the morning to watch exercises, but that wasn't too regular.
Okay. And you went racing there plenty. Do tell me actually, the crowds there, were they sort of mainly local or were there plenty of tourists there or was it a mixture of the two? And, was it a sport that was seen as elite or did everybody really participate?
No, it wasn't an elite sport in Jamaica initially when I started to get involved. You might have people who own horses that people might think are the elite of the society, but everyone got involved. And in the early 60s, in the 60s and early 70s, we had some top class jockeys who came to Jamaica to ride. A lot of English jockeys came out there. People like Lester Piggott, George Duffield, Raymond Still, Dennis Mackay, all those guys, Joe Mercer, all those guys came out to Jamaica in the winter, of course, in England to ride out there because, the standard of racing in Jamaica was pretty high. They would get their holidays in a nice warm climate because remember those days you didn't have anything called all weather racing. So it was just jumps during the winter. So they got a great holiday and they came out and they enjoyed themselves riding around Caymanas Park.
Wonderful. Can you actually remember, first of all, did you bet much actually when you were at the track? And if so, can you remember your first bet or your first win?
No, I wouldn't remember the first of anything like that, to be honest, because I was betting from I was going to high school when I shouldn't have been. And my mother, if she ever found out, and sometimes she did find out that I had a bet, she would scream the house down because she was totally against it. But I wouldn't remember my first bet or the first time I ever won or anything like that. Because, as a kid at that age, you're not really concentrating that much on, say, yes, this is my first bet or the first time I ever won. But I've been betting since those days. And, as I started to own more and more horses and get more and more deeply involved, I continued betting. I enjoy it. Not that I bet to try and win a fortune, but I just enjoy the the task of trying to beat the bookie or to try to find a winner. I enjoy that aspect of it.
I'm very sure everybody listening to this will agree wholeheartedly with that. Um, Now, at Caymanas Park, one thing actually I was really interested to know was all the betting there done on track? Did you have to go there, much like it was, say, in the States? Or did you have some bookies like you could have had in Britain, for example? When I was watching one of the Sky Sports movies about you, I never quite got that out, so I'm interested to know.
We had betting shops in Jamaica. Different companies had betting shops in Jamaica, and the shops were sprinkled all over the island. And you could go into the betting shops and have a bet. But of course, the odds that you got were the odds coming from Caymanas Park. They were the tote odds.
Yeah.
You have too many bookmakers in Jamaica that would offer their own odds. One bookmaker tried it, I can remember many years ago, and got slaughtered because he put up this horse at a particular odds, and I don't know if they got the wrong information on this horse, because you know bookmakers get information.
Mm.
And they were slaughtered. People just backed this horse as if it had already won. And I don't think that lasted very long. So they are still called bookmakers, but they don't make their own books. They use the totals.
I'm sure that's something that many people watching will be familiar with, and perhaps bring some fond memories there too. Another thing, actually, I would like to ask you about your time racing in Jamaica, but horse ownership, was it always something that you wanted to do? Was it sort of a natural next step, or were you encouraged by friends to get into the game?
Well, I got involved with a very good friend of mine in Jamaica that I had known for many years. He had been owning horses for many years. He went to high school, and not the same school, of course, as my sisters. He went to all boys school. My sisters went to an all girls school, and then they met up again at university. And so I knew him from when I was a kid. And he got involved in horses, and he has owned horses. He has been champion owner in Jamaica many occasions. A matter of fact, if you watch that thing that Sky did, when I went to Caymanas Park, that is the gentleman. He's one of his horses won that day, Howard Hamilton. And I got involved with him to a small degree in that we were partners in a couple of horses. He had his, I never had any of them on my own, but we then got in partnership together to have a few horses. And then eventually I had a few on my own. And that is how I got into the ownership aspect of it. Because when I got into partnership with Howard, he was very kind to me. I didn't pay a lot of the fees. He paid most of the fees, and it was just a matter of associating me with the horses. And then eventually, when I got horses on my own, then I have to pay everything up naturally. But that's how I got in. I love the sport. I want to be more involved than just a spectator. And I enjoy being involved as an owner as well.
Absolutely. And just quickly, because we're coming to the end of part one and your initial discoveries into racing, what's your favourite racing memory from Caymanas Park?
Well, my favorite racing memories were whenever my horses won. And the horses that did win races. And that has to be my favorite. There were some great horses involved that came as Park long before I got to the point where I could even think of owning horses. I remember two sprinters that came on as Park that had some serious battles. One was called Touchwood and one was called None Such. And I remember those battles between those two horses, and they were trained by the two best trainers in Jamaica at the time, Lawrence Silveira and A.E. Billy Williams. And those battles, monumental. You don't forget about those battles. But me personally, when your horse wins, there's no greater high than that.
Sure, plenty of people watching will again agree with that. Thank you very much for talking about your early memories at Caymanas Park, Michael Holding. Stay tuned for part two of Betting People after this.